Blog Talk Radio.
Hi everyone, this is Camille from sunny California, and you're listening to the Coffee Chat with Camille show, which is a podcast series that interviews various guests about real life topics for people who love to learn. Hi, hello everyone. We have a very special guest in the studio today. Her name is Elizabeth Mikotowicz, and I hope also I'm pronouncing her name right, but hopefully she received my message to call in. The topic is From Prison to Purpose with artist Elizabeth Mikotowicz. Her bio is that she 5 years ago was painting murals as a federal inmate, and now has her own art shows and launched an environmentally friendly clothing brand based on her art. Prison had opened her eyes to the systematic racism, cruelty, corruption, and inequality in this country. She says that she now has tried to expose what she had witnessed and endured to legislation. She also has created the women's clothing brand that also comes in plus sizes during her healing journey. And she wants to help people from all walks of life to do the same. She says she's editing stages of her memoir. Oh, I can't wait to read it. And she's also creating an adult coloring book based on PTSD and what she's learned from her own trauma. Okay? And also you are welcome to go to her website, of course. It's called Legal Stay. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's LEGISLISTE.com/EN/Elizabeth.Mikotowicz, which is MIKOTOWICZ. And this link is to her environmentally friendly clothing brand. It's called EPM Clothing. She said that Elizabeth has painted all the designs, and it can be ordered in plus sizes made in Canada. Hey, Canada. Her mission, with this brand is to empower anyone who identifies with the divine feminine and empower them with confidence and inner strength. And then she says that she has painted all of these during her own healing journey. Oh my God, I can't wait to go and purchase some for myself, because I too am an artist. So I definitely believe in supporting our art community. Let me see. One moment, everybody. Let me see if I can find our magnificent guest here to make sure she's able to be here with us. Because if not, we just reschedule. Because I'm really going to make time to have Elizabeth on the show. All right. Okay, let me see. Let me see. She may already. Let me check. No, not yet. Okay. I'll ask her if she can just send over her phone number to me, and I'll call her. So So, I'll wait about 10 more minutes, okay? Anyway, I think it's super important to listen to all stories about the injustices, unfortunately, that happen within our country and see in what ways that we can actually make things better. And so we have an activist here, and here's Elizabeth, actually. Okay, so hold on, everyone. Hi, Elizabeth. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's such a pleasure. I mean, you have such a powerful story, and I absolutely wanted to share it with my listeners, okay? And
thank you.
I absolutely admire your activism, and I just feel so pleased to have you here. So you're welcome, by the way, and I do want to go ahead and get into our interview right now so that the audience can learn about you. Okay?
Absolutely.
Yes. So how did you become an addict?
Well, I grew up in a decent family. Like, there was a lot of love and a lot of support, and they both had good jobs, middle class. I grew up in a big house with a big yard. I was loved, had all my needs fulfilled, and they were really great people. But once I started dating, in my 20s, I got in a really bad domestic violence relationship, and he assaulted me to the point where my skull was showing on, one of the first times he assaulted me. Like, it wasn't, there was no build up. It was just like, that's it. I'm in the hospital. Like, they're sewing the muscle back together. They're sewing the skin back together. And I started getting seizures. And they prescribed me opioids, and they told me I was on too small of a dose to get addicted, so I shouldn't worry. And now we know that this was like 15 years ago, so they were still, Big Pharma was pushing their product and lying to everybody, and so I tried to refuse it, and I found out I was pregnant, when I went to the hospital for that injury. And so because my blood pressure kept skyrocketing, they said that was putting my baby in danger. And if I refused, then that could result in a call to Child Protective Services for, refusing, medical advice. So I took it, and, I had a lot of seizures, and that was really scary. And I was going like deaf and blind for moments at a time. And, after I gave birth to my son, the abuse got worse, and I wasn't pregnant anymore. So I was like, well, I don't have to worry about, harming a baby by, doing more. And so, you just start doing more, and, it really helped with the trauma too. Like, I was a nervous wreck. I had never experienced panic attacks before, and, until like all this started happening to me. And eventually I went to Spruce Run, which is a battered women's shelter, and they turned me away with 2 beds open after talking with police. And they said that my injuries were too severe, and my situation was too dangerous, and it put the other women in the shelter in danger. So they had 2 beds open, and one of the girls that got the bed, the guy didn't even hit her. He just kicked her car, and that is domestic violence, absolutely destroying property. Yes, it is. But compared to my situation, and they're telling me, like, no, we're not going to help you. So, I was desperate and scared, and I made a deal with my father. He said, look, you're having, seizures, and, you can't really take care of your kids right now. Anyway, if they can't help you find a place to live or get into a shelter or get a voucher, then, you need to sign temporary guardianship over, because, if my ex were to show up with the cops, my dad would have to hand my kids over, and then I'd have to go through the nightmare of, trying to get them back, and so, drug dealers ended up helping me because once I signed my kids over, I lost my health insurance. So there was no going to rehab. There was, no financial aid, to get me into new housing. I lost all of it because my kids, weren't under my care. And yeah, it was really hard. It was really awful. But drug dealers ended up helping me, giving me places to hide, giving me work, and, or they took advantage. I kind of look at it both ways. Like, they gave me places to hide so I could get away from this man, but at the same time, they were taking advantage of me, getting me into a life I never wanted, and, feeding my addiction, and, breaking the law now, and eventually I caught drug charges and went to prison.
Okay. All right. So then what was prison like?
Well, I spent 16 months in the county jail waiting to get sentenced, and, jail it's very oppressive, and it's very systemically racially, oppressive, and, they, like, for instance, a hospital saves $350,000 a year contracting their linen to be washed by inmates so that they don't have to pay regular Americans, a minimum wage, let alone a living wage, just a minimum wage. Like, they don't want to pay us that anymore either. So, you're demonizing different groups of people for different reasons, mental health, race, whatever, anything, and you're just putting them in, a place where they're not treated right. They're given a number, and the guards are very abusive, and especially to women. They're awful. Like, for instance, my first week at Somerset County, I witnessed an entire pod of women get stripped out because they signed up for a razor, and a male sergeant wanted a list of who shaved their vaginas and who didn't. Like, and those that did were punished. Like, that's the kind of treatment, and that's the PG stuff that goes on in there. Like, I mean, they get really quite violent with people, for no reason. I watched them break a girl's arm because she asked what she did wrong to get hauled to solitary. Like, they told her, cuff up, we're taking you to solitary. All she did was, why am I going to solitary? What did I do? And they said, oh, you're resisting. And then they pushed her up against the wall, and yeah, you just watched her collarbone pop right out of place. It was awful. Like, and you have to watch this stuff, and there's nothing you can do. And if you fight back, it's 5 years.
Wow. And then how did you maintain your sobriety in the last 5 years?
Well, I got really lucky because Janet Mills became the governor, and Paul LePage, he's just conservative, awful. Like, for instance, he got on TV and said, all these drug dealers from the hood are coming up and impregnating our white women. And he's talking about, like, black people, and he's saying that they're flooding our streets and all that stuff, when in reality, like, they wouldn't be coming up here if, a bunch of white drug addicts and drug dealers and confidential informants working for the police weren't going down to get them. So he had cut all, medical insurance and public funding for pretty much everything. So, like, nobody had health insurance then. And so when Janet Mills took over, it was just, we were so lucky because she expanded Medicare, and I was finally able to, get properly medicated and, get therapy and continue counseling and, continue with, my recovery. When before there was just no help. There was, you couldn't even get your medication. When I got out of prison, I went to the pharmacy. There was $1,300 worth of medications the prison had me on, and I had no way to pay for it. I didn't have a place to live. I didn't have a job, and I spiraled. I relapsed again because these psych meds, you detox mentally, physically, and some of those psych meds can kill you. Like, your heart can stop. like lithium, for example, like if you just stop taking that, your heart can stop and you can die. Like they're very dangerous. So what happens is inmates will be let out and they run out of their medications. They might give them a month's supply, but there's, most states, there's no way to get, your prescriptions paid for. And, we all know how big pharma loves to jack their prices up. So, I mean, just, that's what happens. That's why so many people end up relapsing right off the bat. Never mind that it's completely traumatizing to go from prison to society. Your brain's been completely rewired, and, it's very odd. Like we as women, we weren't around men, that weren't in a position of authority and power over us, that, were essentially oppressive. Not all of them were cruel and abusive, but, they're all in a position of power over us where, at the end of the day, we're helpless. And so it's very odd, coming back out and having to get used to be around men again.
Yes. And then what is PREA or PREA?
Oh, PREA. Yeah, that
PREA, thank you.
Yeah, that stands for the Prison Rape Elimination Act. So when I was at Somerset County, that was the same county that stripped those women out. I wasn't one that got stripped out that time because I didn't sign up for a razor. When they put me in solitary, they have illegal cameras in their solitary unit cells. And like in the state of Maine, you are not, by law, you cannot have a camera inside of a cell. Where an inmate's going to the bathroom and sleeping, you're just not allowed to do it for good reason. And they have these cameras in there, but when they put me in there, they're like, you need to strip. And I'm like, I'm not stripping in front of this camera for your cops to watch me. Like, I'm not doing it. And then I was threatened with, a SWAT team. They threatened to extract me. And they literally come in, 10 deep, all suited up in, SWAT gear, with electric shock shields, mace, baton. They have gas, like these gas cans that are scientifically designed to take the oxygen out of your lungs. And it's not like, I've never been in a cell that's been gassed, but it doesn't matter. If one cell is getting gassed, they all are because of the vent system. So when one person makes them mad, everybody's punished. Everybody's abused, everybody is traumatized. And, this becomes, the norm every day. And so when I was in solitary, they made me strip. And when I got to Alderson in prison, I filed a PREA complaint. So PREA is like anything sexual of a sexual nature, whether it's, sexual harassment or rape or anything like that, it goes under PREA. And an outside source is supposed to come and interview the inmate. That never happened at Somerset. I had an officer pulling my pants open, asking me if I was wearing underwear, exposing me to other inmates. And no one ever came and talked to me. I submitted a complaint because I'm like, listen, I have really bad PTSD. Like, she grabs me like that again. Like, I might not have control over my reactions, and I don't want to get 5 years. Like, this isn't fair. And, no one ever came and talked to me, just the lieutenant. And, like, that officer did get in trouble for it, but, like, still, they weren't following proper protocol. And that's what they do to cover the abuse up. They'll say they investigate it themselves, and then they won't allow it to go any higher, and then they won't give you the paperwork. So when I was at Alderson, I filed the PREA against Somerset County for forcing me to strip in front of those cameras because it caused me to have a really bad, like, PTSD, like, kind of mental breakdown because my ex used to trap me in the bathroom and, like, make me strip and literally torture me for hours. That was the same guy that gave me the head injury. Like, he was just sadistic. And, I remember that would start with me, like, begging for my life, and then it would end with me, like, begging him to kill me. Like, please just get it over with. Like, that's how bad it was. And so this put me back to that place, and I started hallucinating that I was, like, back in my old apartment being held hostage by him. So I really kind of had this psychological break because of what they did. They also had me on the wrong medication. They were giving me antidepressants, and I'm actually high functioning autistic, and it can make, if you're not actually depressed, it can put you into, psychosis. It can make you suicidal. It can make you homicidal. Like, these medicines can be very, very dangerous if they're giving you, the wrong one for the wrong diagnosis. And people really don't understand that. They just think, I'm going to take a pill and I'm going to feel better. Like, no, it can be very, very dangerous and really, really scary. And so I filed a PREA at Alderson, and when Alderson got the response back, Alderson wouldn't even let me hold it. They read me the response from Somerset County, and Somerset County admitted to everything I was complaining about, and then they basically deemed it unfounded. They basically said, yep, we did it. What about it? We didn't do anything wrong. So they deemed it unfounded, so it wouldn't go any higher. And that's another way they bury it. They'll admit it, but they'll deem it unfounded. Like, yeah, basically it's okay. And it won't go any higher. Nobody else will look at it. And that's it. They just bury it. So Alderson wouldn't give me the paperwork. I asked for a copy. I asked to send it home. They said, no, we don't do that. And so that prevented me from filing a complaint when I got out, because, you have 100 days to file a complaint about something when you get out of jail. But if you don't have the paperwork to prove that you went up the proper chain of command, they can't do anything. So this is how they're burying all this abuse in prison, and it's destroying people. And, I got a lawyer and everything when I got out, and Somerset County told me to have a lawyer subpoena it. Well, you can't subpoena paperwork without an open case, and you can't open a case without the paperwork. So it's just very corrupt, and, they know these little loopholes, and that's why I'm working with legislation to get, a law on the table that holds these facilities, like $500 a day or something for every day they stonewall an inmate and not give them their paperwork. And this is even worse. So when Alderson, they refused to give me the paperwork. After I got out, the captain and 4 of his subordinates all got arrested and convicted for raping and stalking inmates and tampering with PREA evidence. Like, they didn't do it just to me. They destroyed the PREA evidence, all across the board. I didn't even know this was going on when I was there. I kind of kept to myself. But yeah, the captain got 10 years for raping multiple inmates, and it was like over a dozen girls came forward, and it was just awful. And I guess I can't say I had an idea something was going on, but I didn't know for sure. Like, there were a couple girls in my unit. Sometimes they would just come back at weird hours, and they would be completely shook. They'd go in the shower, and you could hear them sobbing. And, in prison, like, if you see somebody upset, it's kind of just proper etiquette to just leave them alone. And, unless they want to talk like that, you don't ask questions, you don't pry. Like, it's a different etiquette in there.
Yes. And then people assume inmates get 3 free meals and medical treatment. How accurate is this?
That's not very accurate at all. I watched so many women die of, very treatable things. Like, for instance, we work 40 hours for $5.25 a month in the feds. So we're getting pennies a day, literally. This one girl, and I was at a camp, so there aren't even fences holding us in. Like, we are low security, nonviolent women, most of them are white collar, whatever. It's like nobody's a killer there or anything like that. And this girl broke her leg shoveling the snow. By the time they took her to the hospital, they had to re-break her leg because the bone had already fused back together. Like, they let people go. I mean, I can't tell you how many women I watched die of cancer because they would not get them tested. They would not. They only take you to an outside facility if you're going to die. So you can imagine a lot of illnesses, are way worse than they have to be because they just don't check people. They don't do anything for them. This one girl, she had a tumor in her intestines, rectum area, and she had blood pouring out of her into her shoes, and they would not take her. By the time they brought her, she had 3 months to live. They turned her 3-year sentence into a death sentence. Like, the medical, oh my God. No, I've watched women's appendix burst, their gallbladder go bad, and it goes septic because they don't want to take any precaution, any healthcare precautions for these women. And it's terrifying if you think you're sick. Like, the common joke is, that you turn into a hypochondriac because you're not going to get adequate medical attention. I mean, even the nurse in there was like, I would send my child to a witch doctor before I sent them here with these people.
Yeah. And then how has the trauma impacted your mental health?
Well, I mean, I don't leave my house. I'm terrified of cops. And the food comes in boxes that literally says not for human consumption on the side of it. It's really bad. It's really cheap. A lot of it's not even edible. I mean, people get sick. You get moldy bread all the time. Like, it's, there's a couple places like rural jails that will grow their own food and, bring chefs in because it's not a very big inmate population. But the second you start getting 100 or so of inmates, they're cutting every corner. They are, they don't want inmates to have anything. I remember when they cut salt at Penobscot County because it saved them $400 a year. They cut salt out of the inmates' meal. Like, you can't even get them salt. Like, it's so petty and just disgusting. And, I mean, dogs eat better than inmates do.
Yes.
Well, you can buy commissary. You can buy commissary, but they don't have like a lot to choose from. And, like, for instance, a packet of ramen noodles that costs like 20 cents on the outside, it costs $1.50 in there. And we're only making $5.25 a month. Quadruple the prices. Like, they make money off of everything they can. Like, that's what prison is. They're already making over $100 a day in taxpayers' money on, inmates, per inmate, and they're not doing anything for them. I mean, women can't even get tampons unless you want to pay triple the price. They have these cheap little pads that, you have to wear like 4 of them. Women will try to make their own tampons and end up getting infections. Like, it's really bad. We just passed a law in Maine mandating all jails provide tampons and pads free of charge for women. So that was a victory. But
yeah, that's wonderful. Absolutely.
Yeah, the trauma is, it's I'm on a healing journey, and I probably will be for the rest of my life. But every time I see a cop or, anything like that, I get nervous. It's like I flip a coin in my head. Is this guy a sociopath or not? and the women too. Like, it's not just the men. The women will too. And like, I still have crazy dreams. Like, the common prison dream is, you're walking down the block and you're about to get out, and then you get out, and then you're walking down the street, and then all of a sudden the houses turn back into cells, and you're like trying to get out again, and it's like the same cycle over. It's pretty terrifying. Or like, I'll have dreams where, guards will be hurting me or hurting someone I care about, and I can't get out and I can't get to them. I don't really leave my house a lot, like, unless if I have to. I'm very much a recluse now. And, most people I know that have spent some time in prison, that's kind of how they are now too.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so sorry to hear about this. And then why do you think that America, land of the free, has the highest rate of incarceration?
Because it's a free workforce for them. I mean, over the pandemic, all these jails were taking PPP loans to expand their prisons and, get more beds in. And now they're trying to criminalize homelessness. This is a free workforce. Yeah. All these corporations will get free workers, and they don't have to pay them a minimum wage. These millionaires and these corporations are so cheap and so greedy, they don't even want to pay us minimum wage, let alone a livable wage. And, it's easy just to group them all up and, demonize them and name them as a problem and, throw them away. I mean, they were packing so many inmates in. There's something called the bus stop in the feds where you have all of these extra bunks in front of the cubes, which is basically like cells. They just don't, have a door. It was a fire hazard to have that many inmates in the room, but one inmate will pay for that fine, 10 times over in a matter of a couple months. They're getting over $100 a day per inmate. And, another scam in the feds, and I hope people are paying attention because this is where their taxpayers' money is going to. If you don't have your GED, you're mandated to take the GED. That's great if you don't have a high school diploma or a GED. But what was happening is they were getting $2,000, per inmate that was enrolled in the GED. Then they get like another $2,000 when they graduate. So the caseworkers are supposed to get, the high school diploma certificate, to prove that. They won't though. And it's already in people's PSI and paperwork that that they went through high school, if they went to college, whatever. So they have all these women with bachelor's degrees, college degrees, they've gone above and beyond doctorates, and they're being forced to take the GED because they can't get a copy of their high school diploma from prison. So it's just free money to them.
Wow.
I mean, that's all prison is one big money pit.
Yeah. It makes sense. That makes absolute sense what you're saying. And I've never heard that before. So I really, really want to thank you so very much for this enlightening conversation. And I did, if you don't mind, I have a few minutes. I did want to get into you being an artist too. Like how long? Yeah, because I'm an artist as well, and I was so and I'm definitely in the mental health community. I have anxiety and depression from some trauma that I experienced in my life as well, and so that says like so I'm listening to you and I'm like, oh, I understand, and so and I'm definitely going to buy your clothing too, your clothing brand. Could you please get into that a little bit for me? You're welcome.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm actually creating an adult coloring book for trauma. So when I was in the county, my mother sent me these books called Zen Tango books, and it's kind of like this meditative art. You don't have to be naturally talented or some great artist. Like, it is really for everybody, and it's just these little doodles and little designs, and there's a certain way you do it, and there's it's just very relaxing. And that's what I did in county to like kind of distract myself from the trauma and help me with the flashbacks and everything else. So I'm creating a coloring book, and I'm putting some of my coping mechanisms in that book as well, and what I've learned about trauma. And because if you don't understand what's happening to your brain, like, you don't know why you're having these reactions and, what's really happening to you. And I think that made it all that much worse when I didn't understand what was happening to me and why. And so I also paint in murals. I did it in Somerset County, but when I got to Danbury, I actually got paid for it. And it was one of the highest paying jobs in the prison. I got paid $58 a month to paint murals. And it was just really, I was really happy I got to do that because she let me paint whatever I want. And I got to put some really cool stuff on the walls. I call it my blue period because they only allowed me to paint with blue. And, of course, I had white and black, to shade with it. But, it was cool. So it was kind of like Picasso which I can't remember which artist did that. But
yeah, it's Picasso. Yeah, he went through his blue period.
Cool, great.
That's right.
Yeah. So I continued painting when I got out, and I had a couple art shows in the community. One was during Addiction Awareness Month during the pandemic. And then I joined the Bangor Art Society, and I started doing shows with them. And then I found this amazing company called La Galerie from Canada, and they take artists, and you can turn your art into this environmentally friendly clothing brand. And it's very feminine, and it's very well made. And it also comes in plus sizes, which is so cool because I'm all about inclusivity and, just including everybody and equality and all that stuff. So I was like really happy that, they had plus sizes.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Again, I want to thank you for being here. If you don't mind, I'd love to have you back on. You're on my seat. You're the first episode of my season 8. Okay.
Oh, cool.
And yes.
Awesome.
And I also made sure to feature you because I wanted the world to hear your story for sure. Because I'm getting.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, and I just think you're just amazing. And so I will definitely be in touch if that's okay, and I'd love to have you on.
Absolutely.
Have you on again. And
I would love to come back.
Yes. And then and also I'll be on YouTube soon, having my show there, and I'd love to have you on. Okay?
Oh yeah, that's great. I would love to come on.
Yes. So thank you so much, Elizabeth. This is our artist here, our activist, our survivor. She's amazing. And thank you again. And bye for now, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, there you have it, everyone. The purpose. This is from prison to purpose. With artist Elizabeth Mikotowicz. I hope I'm saying her name right. I forgot to ask. But I am definitely going to have her back, and you can see why. She has a very powerful message. She's had a lot of trauma, and out of it, she is kind of on top. She's doing amazing things, amazing. And I absolutely enjoyed listening to her and listening to her perspective. Her answers were just stunning. And it's nothing like having hands-on experience on a topic that you're speaking on. And so I absolutely appreciate her. And she was amazing. Please reach out. Please buy her. Please buy Elizabeth's brand. It's called EPM Clothing, environmentally friendly clothing brand. All right, and I left the description of the link. It's in my description of the show. The link is there. Okay, and. Thank you all so much for listening. I'm actually running out of time right now, but thank you so much for listening to our topic, From Prison to Purpose, with artist Elizabeth Mikotowicz. All right. Thank you. Bye for now.